what Jimmy could do is look at his team and know what it needed, but more than just the X's and O's, right? He could feel what the room needed. So perfect small example. We get beat in 2001, and you're there, my friend. We get beat by Buffalo and Washington at home. It's in November, and I got 4 days off before we go to play in Florida, and I'm pretty sure I'm getting fired. Like I'm in real trouble at this point, right? So the running joke, if you call it a joke in the coach's room, is all we got to do is get on that plane. Like we're not sure we're getting on that plane to Florida, right? But in that time, and Jimmy would always be honest with me. Things are testy now, Paul. Things are going to get tight here. That's his way of saying you're almost fired. He trades back for Sean Hill because we needed what Sean Hill did for our specific team. So Sean Hill walks into the room, makes a joke about why everybody's dragging let's say their chins around. And we go to Florida. We're down 2-0. Jeff O'Neill scores a terrible goal, and we win the game 3-2. We go 7-2-1, and we win the Eastern Conference Championship that year because what he did, he could always feel it. Like even the trade later, after overtime win in Chicago, Shane Willis scores it. Yeah. It gets traded, right? And we end up bringing back Weeksy. I don't know. Tom Barrasso might have been in that too. All I know is I got 3 goalies now, and I'm going, what am I doing with this? This is and Arthur Survey, Tom Barrasso, Weeksy. Oh my God, man. But think of how important Kevin Weeks was in that. Like Jimmy knew we needed another tender to help Archie out because I had played Archie about 72 games that year. I didn't like that trade at all. Like I thought, man, we just finally got Willie going here, and then we got rid of him. But Jimmy, and when you look at his Stanley Cup, Dougie Waite to the world, Mark Recchi bringing in, look what he's done in Pittsburgh. That man could feel a room as well as anybody and know what it needed to get to the next level.
How did you, gosh, we could go on. I mean, let's hope I've got a lot of battery life because I have to ask the first round of that run that ended here against that Hall of Fame laden Detroit Red Wing team. You play New Jersey, and I think New Jersey, you had home ice because of the Southeast Division, Mo, but I think New Jersey was the best team in the Eastern Conference that you're going to face. And you went Artur Zerbe for 2 home wins, and then you work in Weeksy for the huge Game 5 win, the save on John Madden and Josef Ostacek scoring, and then he closes the door in Game 6. How did you, because you needed both those guys to beat a team the caliber of the Devils, how did you do it? What was it? Give me the thought process.
So I'm going to tie the answer to this one back to your last question, how good Jim Rutherford is. Okay, so we win Game 1 and 2 at home, you're right, and we have no business winning those 2 games. And I remember, I think it was a Kenny Danico quote after saying that they had absolutely no business winning those 2 games, our goalie said, and he was right. So after Game 2, we're heading up to Jersey. Jimmy says, you should put Weeksy in the net. And I said, like, are you crazy? Like, I'm thinking you're crazy. He goes, you should put Weeksy in the net. You're going to have a tough time. Game 3. You can always come back with Archie, but this is, I think that was his comment. This might be the best team in the league. And we kind of stole 2 games. But no, I'm not putting Weeksy in the net. I got Archie just stood on his head for 2. The players look at me like I got 3 horns, right? So we get beat. I pull Archie in Game 3, right? Because we're getting smoked. So after Game 3, he says, you should put Weeksy in the net. I'm going, I can't do that. Like, I just pulled him. He's fresh, right? He's ready to go. So I put him in Game 4, and we get shellacked. And now he's not talking. Jimmy's not talking to me anymore. He said his piece twice, man. The third time is, you're out of here. So I put Weeksy in Game 5.
Yeah.
And I'm pretty sure my coaching career, my entire career now is riding on Weeksy. And I'm standing on the bench, Tripp, stepping down because I've seen John Madden, the puck on John Madden stick, and it's over, man. We've lost this game, right? And then the crowd goes berserk. We score in overtime. So that's the Weeksy story. Like, Jimmy was telling me to put him in 2 games earlier. I'm so stubborn sometimes that, no, that's crazy. But he was right. He was right. We won the series, won a conference championship on that call. Yeah.
One clarification, Jimmy would say, Paul, I think you should put Weeksy in. So, hey.
That's pretty good. Let me paint a picture of Jimmy
all managers are different in their style. He is the definition in Webster's dictionary of intense. And so when you get on the bus, all right, after Jimmy sits on the door side, right there, and the coach sits right across the way. And if we've lost, now I ride on a media bus, but not in those days. If we've lost, you can cut the tension with a knife. So what are those rides like to the airport? What were they? Because Jimmy happens to be not only your general manager, but one of your dearest friends in the world. I need you to pull out the canvas and paint a Louvre type picture.
Okay, so there's 3 events that are going to happen. First of all, like, we're both grinding our teeth. Like, there's a similarity to our personalities, that there would be kind of like a no man's land on the bus. We weren't I certainly wasn't going to say anything to him because I didn't know where he was at. So one of 3 things happens. We don't say a word to each other the entire night. That happened most times after losses. The next morning, we'd have a conversation if he had something he wanted to say. If he was really, really steamed, in Montreal, I put Brian Rodney in the shootout. I don't know if you remember that one. We lost in a shootout because Brian Rodney was just called up from the American Hockey League, like playing in his first or second game, but he had gone like 7 for 10, right?
Yes.
And
I think I backed you on the air.
Right. And well, you and I were both in trouble then. And I didn't put Brandon Sutter in, who had scored, I think, 2 goals that game, except Brandon. And I talked to him on the ice like a week earlier about shootouts. And he goes, no, I hate those things. I'm terrible at them. Like, he didn't want to. But anyway, in that event where he just couldn't take it anymore, he'd tell you directly as possible, right? He'd just give it to you. But straight, clean, it wouldn't be a 20-minute undressing. He'd just say, I have no idea. I'll never understand that. That's whatever. Be some language involved. And then it would be done, right? He wasn't coming back to you an hour later. He was giving it to you straight there. Yeah. And then the last one is, and this was true, like on the ugly, ugly nights. He'd say something about, well, that wasn't very good. And I could tell by his tone he wanted to talk about the game, but he wasn't looking for a fight, right? So, I mean, I got a million stories about Jimmy, and there would be no other person in my life that's been a bigger mentor. But what's really cool about that is it's true today. So I left Carolina in 2012. He goes on to Pittsburgh. I go to Russia. So, I mean, we talk 3 or 4 times a year when we get a chance, right? It's life in the NHL. But the stuff that he told me 25 years ago, I'm still using today, or better yet, I'm finally using, right? Like, he told me 25 years ago to do this. It took me that long to figure out. But I'll tell you a quick story. It won't be funny to you, but it's so important. I'm in trouble early on, as I always was, right? We're not winning, and we go into New Jersey, and I am distraught, and he knows it. So before the game, we're sitting up in the stands, and I'm about as low as you can get. And out comes the New Jersey Devil mascot in his gear, and he's ripping around the ice with nobody, and he's putting on his show. Well, by the end of that, I'm in tears laughing, Jimmy's in tears laughing, and it just broke all of the tension that I felt like. I felt like I was letting him down. And at the end of it, it was kind of like, you know what, if you laughed a little more, you might enjoy this a little bit. You got to relax. It's just the game. So that's your GM telling a rookie young coach to relax a little bit. That had a big impact on me, right? I carried that with me for a long time. Like, it really, really helped. And that Jimmy is one of the smartest persons I've ever met in my life. He can feel a room. He can feel your tension. He's very caring. But as you said, like, hyper competitive too, right? So there's a lot of engine there when you're not playing well. He's driving.
And I tell you, I'll try to land the plane quickly. I mean, first of all, Jimmy had so much to do with me growing as a broadcaster, because the lockout that, we lost 2004, 2005, he said to me, I want you to do 2 things. I want you to get in touch with John Shannon, longtime producer for Hockey Night in Canada. And at one point, NHL should have never let him leave this post, the head of NHL broadcasting, and the great Harry Neal. And those 2 guys became mentors to me. Yeah. So Jimmy, I'll never forget that. I'll always be grateful for it. Now, 2 quick stories. When Jimmy usually he always goes on the road. Some managers are scouting, some are staying at home. He usually always goes on the road. So one particular trip he doesn't go on. The Canes, I play in Dallas, all right? And Andrew Raycroft, who I believe you coached in Toronto.
Yeah.
And so anyway, I'm looking at my shooting chart. I mean, the percentages didn't lie. And he was weak, at least according to the numbers, high glove. So
no.
I said
you
early
didn't
in
say
the
it.
game.
You said it?
I said it early in the game, and I probably had Dave Letterman repetition. I came back to it probably too many times in the game. And then in overtime, David Tanabe, I think, had a chance, and he's going high glove. And I'm like, come on, score.
Yeah.
And I mean, just an absolute glove save and a beauty. Okay.
Yeah.
I think we lost. So we get to Florida, and Jimmy now joins us on the road. Jimmy goes, he comes up to me and he goes, I watched the Dallas game. I'm going to give you a grade. And I'm like, okay, my heart rate's starting to go up. And he goes, G. I said, G? I looked at him, I said, G? Is that worse than an F, Jimmy? And he goes, G. G for, I won't say, G for bleep goaltending. All you do is talk about goaltending. And so now I'm totally hot and bothered, all right? And I think Corey Stillman, was playing for Florida at the time, and I think I went to his house because I had stayed there the night before to stay because his kids are like, nephews and his daughter and niece to me. And I'm all totally rattled. But to this day, all these years later, I write goaltending at the top of my game sheet just to make sure, because it's the position I'm most comfortable talking about. The other one was, and this is a classic, Mo.
So just so we're clear, you cost them the game, just so you're clear about that. When he's sitting there watching that happen, he knows a glove save's coming, it's costing, and it's your fault, my friend. It's like saying shutout with 5 minutes left, right? You just can't do that.
I'm going to have to ask him if he threw his remote control at the screen.
Oh, 5 times, guaranteed.
And so the other one, this is comical. All right, so this is the year Sochi, so we had a break. Canes are struggling. And we started a road trip in Buffalo, pummeled, Dallas, pummeled, go to that great hotel in Santa Monica, the Lowe's Hotel. So I know it's going to be a tough practice, and I go for a run on the beach, feeling good about myself. It's probably 7:45 in the morning, but to make the bus, I've got to rush, okay? And it takes this frame some time after I'm, working the heart rate to cool down. I don't quite sweat like Weeksy, but I mean, it takes me some time to cool down. So I then stupidly in the lobby, just for fun, go grab a cup of coffee. And I'm talking to Rod Brindamore and Chuck Caden. Okay. I'm fine. I'm a little warm, but my body temp's okay. Jimmy comes up. He hasn't been on the road trip. Okay. He comes up and he's fumed, and he goes, Tripp, and right in front of Rod and Chuck, he goes, I watched the Buffalo game. Semin, you keep talking about that he's dusting it off too much. I don't know what you're talking about. If I don't know what you're talking about, or as long as I've been in the game, nobody else is going to know what you're talking about. And now, I mean, it's like a cascade coming down my face. I can see Chuck and Rod looking at me. Yeah, that was what a scene in the lobby. And, I learned, but he always let me do my job. I get 1 or 2 of those a year max.
that, you know what I mean? Like that's what his strength is, but you never really left the meeting with Jimmy wondering what he was thinking, right? Like if you left that meeting and you weren't sure what he was thinking, it's about you. You're the one with the problem, and you better find out what's wrong soon, right? Because he was really, he had just such an unusual way of getting his point across where it was pretty clear. And if you didn't know, I think sometimes if you didn't know, that was on purpose, so you'd have to come back and ask him, right? It's almost that you would start the conversation, and he's got a managerial gift that, and I'm going to say gift, like that not a lot of people have, that it's like a talent, right? He can feel a room, he can keep half the room on its toes and half the room laughing and take pressure off. I can't say half the room because that'd be 3 halves, but he can do what he needs to do with each segment of the room all at the same time. It's a really unusual thing to watch. It's impressive.
The Hall of Fame gift.